Hello, KHBC family. This is Pastor Mac checking in with everyone. Obviously, I'm stuck at home right now, and for the time being, our church services may in large part be from home and meeting virtually. Um, but we, as pastors and just as a church, are obviously still called to be a part of each other's lives, and even if it's just a virtual presence. So I hope that in some small way, sharing devotionals and keeping up in this way can just be a help to someone. I want to share a devotional thought with you today from the book of Ephesians. I love the book of Ephesians, and actually we've been going through this book together as a youth group on Wednesday nights for quite some time. And just last week, it was my turn to preach, and I was preaching through Ephesians 4:11 through 16, and one of the key verses and even phrase from from verse 15 that stood out was speaking the truth in love. Speaking the truth in love. Let me read Ephesians 4:15 and 16 in ESV and highlight that phrase. Ephesians 4:15 says, rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. In this passage, Paul describes speaking the truth in love as a key component of a healthy, growing church body. And not just one person speaking the truth in love, and not just a small group of people in the church committed to speaking the truth in love, but every member and every part of the body, in order for a body to be truly growing and to be healthy, is for each member to be speaking the truth in love to one another in some way or another. This phrase stood out to me so much last week when I was preaching it that when it came time to applying the message, I actually gave our teens a challenge. I said, I challenge you this week to speak the truth in love to one person. Could be a family member, a friend, someone in your class. And in some way, try to speak the truth in love this week intentionally. I don't know if the teens did that. I challenged them to do it. But we left it there last Wednesday. And then some time passed, and everything in society got real crazy with this virus spreading. I kind of forgot about my message. And then about a week later, I'm sitting at home, and I read this book called Loving Messy People. It's a book on discipleship. And in the first chapter, the author actually references Ephesians 4, the very same verse that had touched me a week earlier. And he referenced that specific phrase, speaking the truth in love, as a cornerstone of his approach to discipleship. And it reminded me of how important this command is. We want to be a healthy church. We want to be healthy members and growing together as a healthy church. And one of the key ways we can take inventory and take stock of ourselves to see if we're healthy, growing Christians is to ask, are we speaking the truth in love to one another? Of course, that's not the only way. There are many other spiritual disciplines and things that we should be putting in practice to truly be a healthy church. We should be giving and praying and reading our Bibles and so many other things. But this is a key component, speaking the truth in love. Many people have noticed this phrase, I think, for a few reasons. One of the reasons that stood out to me is the fact that those two big ideas, truth and love, are married together in one command. And as we speak to each other as friends and family members and fellow church members, if we speak truth without love, then we aren't adequately growing in a healthy way together. And if we speak love without truth, then we've also fallen short of this goal. Keep in mind that when the Apostle Paul writes truth, he probably has in mind specifically the truths of the Bible, and especially the gospel. And with that in mind, if we try to love one another as a church body and be kind to one another, but at the same time, our love is not based on the truths of the gospel and the Bible and who God is, then the author of this book, Loving Messy People, compared that to wandering aimlessly. Yeah, he in fact compared it to like being in a taxi or an Uber, taking an Uber, and the driver is driving very comfortably and smoothly, and the air conditioning on, and the music is on, and it's relaxing, but there's no destination. Truth is what anchors our love and gives it purpose and expression. And if we try to love each other without anchoring um, our words to each other in the truth of the gospel, then it's going to be shallow, and we're not going to be a healthy, growing church body. Similarly, if you try to give someone truth, a Bible truth, gospel truth, without loving them, well, that also has problems. If you speak the truth to someone, but you do it in a harsh, unloving, or arrogant way, then you've really used the truth as a weapon against that person instead of using truth to build them up and make them a better person. And it can be very easy, especially if someone's caught in a sin problem or if they're making foolish decisions, to give them truth in a way that's harsh or unloving, that's really not helpful. Um, Someone who's caught in a sin problem, just saying to them, "You're a jerk." If, let's say, for instance, even with the sin of anger, you're an angry person. You need to change that. Um, well, that may be the truth, but unless we're doing it in a loving, helpful way, that person's not going to be built up by gospel grace. They're just going to be torn down. So when we speak to each other, we want to do it with truth and love married together. And this can take all kinds of different shapes and forms. It may look like restoring someone who's caught in a sin gently, as Galatians 6:1 would tell us. So it may be words of comfort to someone in their suffering, someone who's mourning or has experienced the loss of a loved one or the loss of a job, or is anxious or fearful. And especially there's plenty of that to go around right now with the spread of this virus. Speaking the truth in love could be words of encouragement and gospel just affirmation and truth to someone, without any particular cause. Just sending a random text saying that you appreciate someone and you appreciate um, what they do and who they are, or sharing a Bible verse with someone, sharing an insight from your devotional reading, something like that. Speaking the truth in love could be words of guidance to someone who needs wisdom or advice. There's so many different ways that this command can take shape in our lives. May look different in different circumstances, but speaking the truth in love is something we can always be putting into practice. When I gave this challenge to the youth group, I had a small group discussion with a couple of the members of the youth group, and I remember giving the example to these junior high boys, saying, one way that you can speak the truth in love is to take something that you're learning about God from your Bible classes at school or your Bible reading, and you can just share that with a friend. It's as easy as that, saying, God taught me in my reading that he is wise, that he is sovereign, that he's in control. I was reminded that he loves me. I'm reminded that my sin is great and I fail so many times, but God's grace is there for me. It can be just sharing an insight with a friend. And it was funny because when I used that specific example, I was trying to make the command easier to follow, trying to make it, these boys realize this is something that you can do. And the particular teenage boy looked at me and said, I don't really talk that way with my friends normally. That's we normally talk about video games and sports and school and stuff. We don't normally talk about, hey, let me share with you a Bible verse. And I get that maybe it should be an easy thing for many of us, but sometimes it's hard because we talk about, with the people even that we're close with on a daily basis, we talk about grocery lists and we talk about TV shows and we talk about the news and what's happening, but sometimes we don't intentionally stop to speak the truth in love, speak gospel truth with intending to really build someone up in their Christian walk. And I get that it's hard, but the Lord is really making me grapple with the fact that this is a key part of the Christian life that I can work on. And maybe this is a challenge that you can undertake too. So I'll give the same challenge to anyone listening to this message that I gave to our youth group a week ago. Try to take one opportunity over the next week to speak the truth in love to one person that God has put in your life. And, you know, maybe to a spouse, you say something like, I love you every day. And while that's technically speaking the truth in love, um, if you're really going to follow this challenge, try to make it something unmistakably intentional. Um, that I'm going to try to share an insight about what I'm learning in my relationship with God, or I'm going to try to send a text letting someone know that I'm praying for them, or, I know someone's going through a trial and I'm going to try to ask them how they're doing and speak into their situation. Of course, I don't want to bind anyone's conscience to any particular expression of this command, just as long as we're putting into practice, that's the important thing. But maybe this challenge is for you over this next week, that God would lead you to say, hey, I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to intentionally speak the truth and love to someone God has put in my life. So that is my prayer for me over this next week, again, for 2 weeks in a row, and for anyone listening to this. I pray that as we would go about the coming days, that God would give us opportunity to speak the truth in love to each other.